The briefing room was silent, the tension palpable. Commander Jax Orion stood at the front, hands clasped behind his back, a figure of confidence amidst the galaxy's finest. His elite squad of Black Hawk soldiers sat before him, hardened faces barely flinching as the holomap of the Solstice prison ship flickered to life. "Listen up," Jax's voice cut through the quiet hum of the room, sharp and authoritative. "We've got a simple job. Find the criminal, capture or eliminate, and bring her back. No mercy. This is one of Earth's finest escapees, known as Baba Yaga." A low murmur rippled through the group. Earth criminals were an oddity in the galaxy, primitive, chaotic, dangerous, but nothing the Blackhawks couldn't handle. The collective belief was that Earth's criminals were little more than savage animals, easily dealt with by the galaxy's advanced forces. Jax stepped forward, his boots clicking on the metallic floor as the map of the prison ship expanded. "She's holed up on the Solstice, a floating jail on the outskirts of the Epsilon system. She's been leading a crew of rebels for months, causing trouble for the Galactic peacekeepers. Think of her as the galaxy's biggest joke, nothing but a tiny thorn in our side." "Underestimated and overhyped," Sergeant Kira remarked, her eyes scanning the map. "You got that right," Jax smirked. "She's nothing but a criminal from a backwater world. You'll notice that the Solstice is crawling with more outlaws than we're used to, but that's just fodder for the real prize. You're not here to fight every criminal on board. Your mission is to capture or kill Baba Yaga. She's the one we want." A pause hung in the air as the team took in the mission details, shifting in their seats. To the Blackhawks, Earth criminals were almost laughable. Their primitive technology, their unpredictable nature, it was all too easy to predict. Kira, ever the skeptic, leaned forward, her dark eyes locking onto Jax. "How dangerous are we talking? I mean, Earth criminals are one thing, but if she's got a whole crew of rebels." "Don't waste time second-guessing me," Jax snapped, his tone hard. "She's a problem, but nothing that should concern us. We've dealt with worse." At his side, Lieutenant Vance, the team's explosives expert, chuckled. "I've seen Earth criminals on other missions, low-tech, low intelligence. No match for us." Jax nodded, his jaw tightening. "Exactly. And that's how we're going to handle this. We've got the element of surprise. The Solstice won't know what hit them." The team boarded their stealth craft, a sleek and silent vessel designed to infiltrate and strike fast. As they neared the Solstice, Jax's confidence was unwavering. They would breach the prison, clear out the rebels, and take Baba Yaga back to the Galactic authorities in a few hours, tops. "We'll hit the North Docking Bay. Vance, Kira, you two take point. The rest of you, follow my lead. Keep your wits about you. This isn't going to be as easy as you think," Jax ordered as the craft neared the ship's hull. The ship shuddered as the docking clamps latched into place. The Blackhawks filed out in perfect formation, their boots hitting the cold metal floor of the Solstice. The dim lighting and distant sounds of the prison ship's engines added to the oppressive atmosphere. They moved swiftly through the narrow corridors, weapons raised, senses alert. At the head of the formation, Jax's focus never wavered. He knew the layout of the prison well. They'd deal with resistance at the main hall, then proceed to Baba Yaga's last known location. But something felt off. The air was too still, too quiet. He pushed the thought aside, chalking it up to nerves. As they rounded a corner, a voice echoed through the empty hall. "Well, well, well. The galaxy's finest soldiers, all lined up and ready for a parade." Jax's blood ran cold. The voice wasn't coming from any of the prisoners. They weren't supposed to be able to communicate with the outside world. It was too calm, too knowing. The team halted, weapons raised in unison, scanning for the source. Then, from the shadows ahead, she appeared. Baba Yaga. Her silhouette was imposing, like a predator in the dark, every step purposeful and controlled. She wore a tactical suit, battle-worn but functional, her hair pulled back into a tight braid. Her eyes gleamed with cold calculation, as if she'd been waiting for them. "I must admit, I expected a bit more flair from you guys," she said, her voice smooth and mocking. But I guess I'll have to make do with what's on offer. Jax's pulse quickened, but his stance remained steady. Baba Yaga, you're coming with us. She tilted her head, as if considering his words. You know, I've been trying to figure out the perfect way to end this little game. But I think I'll start with you. Without warning, she disappeared into the shadows, faster than Jax could react. The Black Hawks were trained for this, quick, decisive action, but even they were caught off guard. Then, the ship shook violently. A series of explosions tore through the walls, sending sparks and debris scattering. Vance shouted a curse as he dove behind cover, the team falling into position. We're under attack. Kira yelled, her voice urgent. The lights flickered as the ship's alarms blared. But it wasn't just random chaos. Baba Yaga was orchestrating it. Each blast was a calculated strike, designed to confuse and overwhelm. The Black Hawks were being picked off, one by one, like prey in a hunter's game. Stay close, keep your heads. Jax barked, as his team scrambled to regroup. But even he couldn't deny it, this was not going according to plan. From the chaos, Baba Yaga's voice came again, calm and steady. You thought you were hunting me. But now, I am hunting you. Jax's jaw tightened as he scanned the darkened hall. His team was scattered, trying to make sense of the ambush. A sinking realization began to form in the pit of his stomach. This wasn't just a criminal. This was something more dangerous. Something the Black Hawks had underestimated. And now, it was too late to turn back. Get ready, boys, Jax muttered under his breath, his pulse pounding. We're in for the fight of our lives. The game had changed. Jax's boots clanged against the metal floor as he crouched behind a bulkhead, his chest heaving with each breath. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burning circuits and the distant, rattling hum of the solstice as the ship struggled to maintain stability. The entire prison vessel was in chaos, lights flickering sporadically as the emergency alarm screamed, drowning out the otherwise tense silence. His squad, the Black Hawks, was no longer the picture of controlled precision. They were scattered, trying to regroup, trying to stay alive. Vance, report. Jax barked into his comm, voice laced with frustration. He didn't have time for hesitation. They needed to act fast. I'm pinned down in the west corridor, Commander. Vance's voice crackled through the comms, strained but resolute. This woman's a ghost. I can't track her. Jax swore under his breath. Baba Yaga had already proven she was more than just a criminal. The calculated explosions had drawn them into a trap, each blast designed to separate the squad. And now, the enemy was playing them like amateurs. Stay sharp, Jax ordered. We need to converge, North Sector. I'll come to you. His mind raced, trying to calculate their next move. He had trained for this. He had led dozens of successful missions, all with a meticulous sense of control. Yet this wasn't what he had expected. Baba Yaga was an enigma, a force of nature who fought with the kind of ruthless efficiency that Jax had only ever seen in elite military units. She wasn't just a criminal. She was a strategist, a leader. A cold shiver ran down his spine as a low growl echoed from the comm commander, "She's messing with our systems. The tactical feeds are down. I can't see her." Kira's voice was tight with panic. Jax's grip tightened around his weapon, his pulse quickening. This was the moment where he needed to prove he wasn't just a leader by title. He needed to take charge, outthink her, outfight her. Don't let her get in your head, Jax muttered to himself. We can handle this. He signaled to his remaining squad, each of them repositioning through the shadows, silently moving through the ship's corridors. His gut told him the worst was yet to come. Baba Yaga was playing a game, and it was a game Jax hadn't planned for. Minutes felt like hours as Jax pushed through the narrow hallways, the air thick with tension. He finally reached the west sector, where Vance was hiding behind a reinforced blast door. The rest of the squad had gathered, each member maintaining their position, their weapons ready. Vance gave him a sharp nod. She's fast, Commander. We can't pin her down long enough to land a hit. Jax's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the surroundings. The walls of the ship were pocked with scorch marks from the earlier explosions. The floor was strewn with debris, chunks of metal, shattered equipment. It was a war zone. "She's taking advantage of the environment," Jax said, his voice grim. "We're dealing with someone who knows how to manipulate a battlefield." "Oh," Kira's voice interrupted, "someone who wants us to think we're the ones being hunted." Jax turned sharply to face her. "What's that supposed to mean?" Kira's dark eyes flickered. "This isn't just about her escape. This is about us. She's luring us into a corner, Commander. And every move we make is exactly what she wants." Jax took a long breath, the pieces beginning to click into place. They weren't just being attacked, they were being manipulated. Baba Yaga wasn't out for simple bloodshed, she was playing a deeper game, one that Jax hadn't anticipated. "Then we stop playing by her rules," Jax muttered. "No more predictable moves. We're going off book." He turned to Vance. "Set the charges, but hold off until I give the word. Kira, get the security systems back online. We need eyes on this ship. No more guessing." The team moved into action. Jax leaned against a wall, his eyes scanning the shadows. His mind raced, strategizing, trying to think like Baba Yaga. What would she do next? Then, the unmistakable sound of boots echoing in the distance sent a shockwave of realization through him. "She's coming," Kira whispered. "Prepare yourselves." The moment Kira finished speaking, the lights went out. It was as if the ship had been swallowed whole by darkness. The only sounds were the staccato breaths of his squad, the soft hum of their tactical gear, and the distant, creeping noise of footsteps, purposeful, slow, and rhythmic. Jax's heart pounded in his chest, the silence amplifying every movement. He tightened his grip on his rifle, crouching lower, every sense attuned to the environment around him. A low chuckle broke the silence. "You've been chasing shadows," Baba Yaga's voice whispered, eerie and calm. "And I've been watching you, all of you." Before anyone could react, a sharp clang rang out. The sound of a footfall. No warning. No time to prepare. Kira was the first to move, diving to cover as a burst of fire tore through the air where she had just been standing. Jax barely had time to blink before the next explosion rang out, shaking the ground beneath them. The ship groaned in response, and another section of the hull was torn open. "Move!" Jax shouted, signaling for the team to scatter. They ran, dodging the erratic bursts of fire. Jax moved with them, instinctively covering each of his men, his mind working overtime to track their unseen assailant. The moments that followed were a blur of adrenaline. Baba Yaga was everywhere and nowhere all at once, striking from the shadows, disappearing before they could even pinpoint her position. Jax fired blindly into the dark, hoping to land a hit, but she was too fast, too unpredictable. "Commander!" Vance's voice came through the comm, shaky but determined. "She's in the ventilation shafts. We can't hit her in there." Jax cursed, his mind spinning. "She's using the ship's layout against us. We need to flush her out." "How the hell do you propose we do that?" Kira demanded. "Pressure her into making a mistake," Jax said, his voice hard. "We keep her moving, keep her exposed." Then, out of nowhere, Baba Yaga's voice echoed through the ship again, sending a chill down Jax's spine. "You really think you can beat me at my own game, Commander? It's too late for you." He could hear the smile in her voice, the satisfaction in knowing she had them right where she wanted them. Jax didn't answer. Instead, he did what he did best, adapt. "We'll see about that." The game had just begun. Jax's pulse was steady, his mind racing as he and his team regrouped in the heart of the solstice. The pursuit of Baba Yaga had turned into something far more complex than a simple capture mission. The ship had become a maze, each turn a trap laid by the criminal mastermind, each room a potential death trap. The glow of emergency lighting cast long shadows, adding to the ominous atmosphere. Jax crouched behind a collapsed wall, his eyes scanning the room. His squad had taken shelter, regrouping after their last failed attempt to pin Baba Yaga down. The air was thick with the acrid smell of smoke from a dozen different explosions, the constant hum of the ship's engines a reminder that time was slipping away. "Commander," Kira's voice crackled through his earpiece, sharp and urgent. "We've got a problem. She's not running anymore. She's waiting." Jax didn't need to hear more. He knew what that meant. Baba Yaga had always been a step ahead, playing them like pawns, but now, for the first time, it seemed as though she was ready to confront them directly. "I've got a plan," Jax said, voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. He turned to the rest of the squad, their faces grim in the dim light. "We're not playing her game anymore. We're going to make her think we're abandoning the chase." The team exchanged confused glances, but Jax continued before anyone could voice their doubts. "We need to create a diversion. Let her think she's won. Then, we'll hit her hard." "Think she's won?" Vance muttered, a smirk crossing his face. "She's got another thing coming." Jax's lips tightened into a thin line. He wasn't underestimating her anymore. Not after what had happened. They had to outsmart her, not just outgun her. That was the only way they were going to survive this. Minutes later, the Blackhawks set their plan in motion. Vance planted the explosives, Kira hacked into the ship's compromised security system, and Jax coordinated the whole operation. Their movements were precise, efficient, every member of the squad knew their role, and they carried it out without question. It took them less than 10 minutes to breach the north wing, setting off a series of controlled detonations. The ship's alarms blared once more, and the emergency lighting flickered out, plunging them into darkness. Jax motioned for his team to spread out, their footsteps silent against the cold, metal floors. The plan was simple: make a lot of noise, draw Baba Yaga into one of the ship's main control rooms, then spring the trap. But as they moved deeper into the belly of the Solstice, Jax couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The silence was too perfect. There were no screams, no rush of footsteps, nothing. It was as if the ship was holding its breath, waiting. He stopped, signaling for the team to halt. "Stay low," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Kira's eyes narrowed. "Something's off. It's too quiet." Jax's instincts screamed at him. This wasn't a trap. It was worse. Baba Yaga wasn't just playing along anymore. She had figured out their plan. And now, she was going to make them regret it. The moment they entered the control room, the door slammed shut behind them with a deafening thud. The sudden sound jolted Jax, and he spun around, reaching for his weapon, but it was already too late. From the shadows, Baba Yaga stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with cold amusement. Well, the mighty Blackhawks. You thought you could outwit me." Jax's hand tightened around his weapon, but he didn't raise it. He couldn't afford to show weakness. "You're trapped, Baba Yaga. You're surrounded." She didn't flinch. Instead, she laughed softly, a sound that sent a chill down his spine. "Surrounded? You think this is about me being trapped? No. This is about you, Commander. About how you've underestimated me. How you think your fancy little toys and tricks can win this war. But you're not dealing with a typical criminal anymore, are you?" Jax held her gaze, his thoughts spinning. She wasn't bluffing. She wasn't scared. And, worst of all, she wasn't alone. Somewhere, hidden in the shadows, her crew was watching. Waiting. "You were right," she continued, her voice colder now. "This wasn't about escaping. It was about showing you exactly how weak your little empire is. How much you rely on force, instead of understanding." There it was, the first crack in Jax's resolve. She had struck a nerve. The words were too close to the truth. He'd been taught to rely on power, on the strength of the Blackhawks, on technology. But what had that gotten them? Nothing but more chaos, more losses. "I don't need your sympathy," Jax finally said, his voice low but unwavering. "You're a criminal. You've made your choice. Now, it's my turn." Baba Yaga tilted her head, as though considering his words. "You think I'm a criminal, Commander? That's what they told you, isn't it? They didn't tell you how the galaxy turned its back on me. On us. You think I chose this life out of some twisted desire for chaos? No. I chose this life because it's the only one I could have. Just like you've chosen yours. You think you're better than me. But you're not. Her words were venomous, each one landing with the force of a blow. Jax opened his mouth to argue, but the words died in his throat. For the first time in this mission, he was unsure of his own position. Baba Yaga wasn't just an outlaw. She was a survivor. And there was more to her story than Jax had been led to believe. She stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. You've come here to do what? Capture me? Kill me? What happens then, Jax? Will they just send you on the next mission? Another war to fight, another criminal to kill? You're a tool, Commander. Just like the rest of us. But you don't realize it yet. The words stung, but Jax couldn't deny the truth in them. He had been sent to neutralize her. To stop her. But why? Because she was a threat to the galaxy's peace? Or because she stood as a reminder that the empire he fought for wasn't always just? Jax took a step back, his eyes narrowing. You talk too much. Baba Yaga's smirk didn't fade. Maybe I do. But I'm not the one who's going to have to live with the consequences of all this. Jax's mind raced. She was right, in ways he didn't want to admit. There was more at play here than just a criminal uprising. More at stake than just capturing a fugitive. For the first time since this mission had begun, Jax wasn't sure who the real enemy was. The control room was a battlefield, not of weapons, but of wills. Jax stood across from Baba Yaga, each of them locked in a silent standoff, the tension palpable between them. Her words echoed in his mind, stirring something he hadn't anticipated, doubt. The mission had started with a clear goal, capture or kill. But now, it was something more. She wasn't just a target. She was a question, an enigma that had shaken the foundation of everything Jax had believed in. His hand rested on the hilt of his weapon, but it felt heavier than ever. His instincts screamed at him to act, to fight. Yet, for the first time in years, he hesitated. Baba Yaga had dismantled his certainty piece by piece, revealing the cracks in his perception. You're stalling, she said softly, her eyes never leaving his. You've seen the truth. The galaxy's peace is a lie. You're just another pawn in their game. Jax didn't answer immediately. The weight of her words hung in the air, but he refused to let her manipulate him further. He had a job to do. He had to finish this. But the thought gnawed at him, threatening to break through his resolve. He needed to make a decision, one that would either solidify his loyalty to the galaxy or make him question everything he had ever stood for. Baba Yaga moved closer, not threateningly, but with purpose. You think I'm just a criminal. But I'm not. I'm a survivor. A fighter who's been cast aside by the very system you're sworn to protect. They'll never tell you the real story. They'll never tell you how they twisted me into this, into someone you're supposed to kill. Jax's grip tightened, but it wasn't on his weapon. It was on his willpower, trying to suppress the surge of empathy threatening to rise within him. He had a job to do. He had to capture her. I'm not here for your sub-story, Jax said, his voice low and unwavering. You're a criminal, and that's all that matters. Her smile was small, but it was tinged with something that made Jax's heart skip a beat, a mixture of sadness and understanding. You really believe that, don't you? He clenched his jaw. You've got no idea what I believe. She paused, then stepped back, folding her arms across her chest. Maybe I do. Maybe you're just like me. A tool for something bigger. They've been using you, Commander, just like they used me. They send you out here to fight, to kill, and when it's over, they'll send you on another mission. Another war to fight, another criminal to kill. And all you'll ever be is a soldier, a weapon for their empire. Her words hit harder than any punch he'd taken on this mission. They were true in ways he hadn't considered, hadn't allowed himself to consider. He had always followed orders, always believed in the cause. But now, standing here in front of this woman, this criminal, this leader, he was starting to wonder if the empire he fought for was really worth defending. I'm not like you, Jax muttered. I'm not a criminal. You don't have to be, she said softly. You just have to stop being their puppet. Stop fighting their wars. Stop killing for them. Jax's mind reeled, but before he could respond, an explosion shook the room, causing the walls to tremble and the lights to flicker. The sound of metal scraping against metal filled the air, followed by the echo of boots pounding in the distance. Damn it, Jax cursed, his attention snapping back to the task at hand. We've got company. Baba Yaga smiled wryly. Your backup's here. How convenient. The door to the control room burst open, and the Black Hawks poured in, weapons raised, ready for a fight. But as they moved into the room, their eyes darted between Jax and Baba Yaga, unsure of what to do. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Commander, Vance said, his voice tense. We've got a clean shot. Just say the word, and we end this. But Jax didn't speak. He didn't even move. His eyes were still locked on Baba Yaga, watching her, studying her every move. She had been right about one thing, she had changed the way he saw things. The mission was no longer just about capturing a fugitive. It was about a choice he had to make. Baba Yaga stepped forward again, unarmed, but her presence was more threatening than any weapon. Go ahead, Commander. Give the order. Kill me. But ask yourself, what does that make you? The words sliced through Jax's resolve, but he didn't flinch. It makes me a soldier. No, she countered, her voice quiet but fierce. It makes you a killer. A tool. A silence fell over the room, heavy and thick. The squad, still poised for action, stood frozen, watching Jax, waiting for him to make the call. His heart pounded in his chest, the weight of the moment pressing down on him with the force of 1,000 suns. Jax's gaze never left Baba Yaga, but his mind was elsewhere. He saw her, but he also saw the countless soldiers he had fought alongside, men and women who had died for causes they never fully understood. He saw the faces of those who had been manipulated, those who had been discarded by the system. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure which side he was on. I'm done, Jax said, his voice steady, but filled with finality. Vance's eyes widened. Commander! Jax turned to face his squad, his decision made. We're not killing her. Not today. I won't be part of this anymore. The tension in the room shattered, but not in the way anyone expected. The Black Hawks exchanged confused glances, but no one dared to challenge Jax. This wasn't just a mission anymore. This was something else, something bigger than any of them. Baba Yaga's expression softened, just for a moment. She didn't speak, but the acknowledgement in her eyes said everything. They had reached an understanding. For the first time, Jax didn't see her as the enemy. He saw her as a reflection of everything he had been fighting against. Let's go, Jax said to his team, his voice resolute. We're leaving. As the Black Hawks filed out of the room, Jax glanced back at Baba Yaga one last time. Her gaze met his, and for a fleeting moment, he wondered if he was making the right choice. But deep down, he knew one thing, he wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was something else. And that was the first step toward changing everything.